Oh, it's another day here at the Comeback Team Studios, and you're watching another episode of the Interesting Times podcast right here on the Bek Lover Podcast, where I cover all the stories, all the headlines, all the rumors, stories across the world, stories locally right here in New York. I do all the homework for you. I keep you in the know, and I kind of give you my analysis of what's going on and what could be coming next. So if you want a different take on world events, a different analysis, I draw on many different backgrounds. I'm born in America. I'm of Albanian descent. I happen to be a Muslim. I was in the World Trade Center area when it was attacked. I've lost family in war. I've done it all. I've seen a lot in my life, and I bring a very different perspective to things. And my overall message is one of unity. Regardless of what people believe, what they practice, what ethnicity, what race, what color, sex, I truly believe only God can judge us. We don't have the right as human beings to write each other off. We do not have the right to judge each other unless we're doing things that are very morally wrong. And at the end of the day, every human being has their own soul. They have to choose their path. They have to choose what they do with this gift of life. And as precious as it is, and that life is sacred, and that no one should be forced to believe in something that they don't believe. And hatred is a weapon that must be destroyed. It only hurts everyone. And we are living in a very divisive time with everything going on here in the U.S., across the world, especially the Middle East. And I know at times some of my clips are taken out of perspective, out of the context of the entire 2 or 3 hour podcast that I do when I go on people's shows. But if you listen to the entire episodes, it's not about proving who's right or wrong, which religion's true or not. But I point out what I believe are the double standards, the hypocrisy, propaganda, lies, and misinterpretations across the board, not to prove who's right or wrong, but to destroy hatred that's built on false pretenses. And that is my objective. In any event, we have free will, we make decisions, and there's one person that made some decisions that I think really backfired in his life, and I think we're only just starting to see the beginning of the fallout that was Diddy. I know it's been a couple of days since I've done my last show. There's a lot been going on. I have been more consistent. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. I have a ton of content on my YouTube channel. You could follow along on Instagram. I post content almost every day. A lot of that content does go viral. You've probably seen it across many platforms. I also am very active on X. I get involved in a lot of spaces on X, which are live audio discussions with thousands of people listening and participating. And I would welcome you onto those platforms so you could be a part of, interacting with me. In any event, over the last few days, since Diddy went in, he was denied bail, a lot of strange things have been happening in the entertainment world. It's even made the news. People like Leonardo DiCaprio, Pink, Usher have been caught in the crossfire. There's been a lot of activity on X, which was formerly known as Twitter. It's so annoying to always have to say that, formerly known as Twitter, But that's what we kind of got to go through since Elon bought it and changed the name. I think it was so much easier to say Twitter and tweeted. What do we X'd? I sent an X. I think it was a stupid move. I think they should have kept the brand name. But whatever. Leonardo DiCaprio distanced himself from Diddy as their white party pics emerge. There were not freak-offs. Leonardo DiCaprio has seemingly reacted to his appearance at Sean Diddy Combs' popular white party. Photos of the Hollywood A-lister mingling with the music mogul at a star-studded party recently resurfaced, sparking concerns among fans due to Diddy's arrest. However, a source close to Leonardo DiCaprio claimed that he hasn't been in contact with Diddy for years and never intended any of his quote-unquote freak-offs. Leonardo DiCaprio has not been in contact with Diddy. Amid Diddy's recent arrest for alleged trafficking and racketeering, several A-listers with ties to him have faced intense scrutiny, especially those who attended his now infamous parties. Diddy has been accused of using drugs like ketamine and cocaine to coerce women into elaborate and produced performances known as freak-offs. Now that the photos of DiCaprio drinking, smoking, and laughing besides the rapper at one of his parties in 1999 have emerged, tongues are wagging regarding his relationship with Diddy. However, a source close to the 49-year-old movie star told the Daily Mail that their relationship has suffered in recent years as they have not been in contact for a long time. The source added that DiCaprio never attended freak-offs and has nothing to do with them. Leonardo DiCaprio has absolutely nothing to do with any of this, the source said. He attended a few of his parties back in the early 2000s, but literally everyone did. They were not freak-offs, the source continued. They were big house parties. Leo was at the start of his career at the time, and he had moved way past his partying. He has nothing to do with any of that world, so anyone to assume that he will get roped into this based on a few grainy photos that are more than 20 years old is ridiculous. Leo's focused on his career and his relationship and is not at all thinking about Diddy's federal case, which he has nothing to do with. So, comments on that. First and foremost, I agree with that. Just because people are in pictures with someone, even the most infamous person who, unalived himself while in maximum security and the cameras didn't work. The guy that was connected to some of the most powerful people in the world. I'm talking about leaders, celebrities. Just because someone is accessible to the A-list, meaning I, for example, have pictures with thousands of celebrities. I've met many of them. I'm friends with some of them. It does not mean that they even know what I'm up to or what I could be doing. And if I ended up going down for something, it doesn't mean that they're automatically guilty just because they met me or I took a picture with them. It's ridiculous. Now, if they were known to frequent my residence, always be at my events, and there's people that can link me to doing alleged crimes, that's a different story. You have to presume people are innocent until proven guilty. I don't care, even in Diddy's case. We need to see what happens. I'm not protecting the guy. I think he is a narcissist. I met him about 3 or 4 times in the nightlife in New York. I told you I was at an event in 2001 that was hosted at a nightclub, which had all the A-list rappers at that time, and it was for the album release of We Invented the Remix, which was an album released by Diddy. And yes, he was there. And yes, I was there in the same building. And that was an industry event, so it wasn't like a private residence where there was thousands of dildos and baby oil everywhere. It was in the public eye. So my question is, I've never been to a private event or a house party, so I would have no way to comment on any of that. What I saw at that time was very normal, industry standard, in a nightclub, everyone celebrating, a cake, for the album release. 112 was there, Black Rob was there, Busta Rhymes was there. There was women, people were drinking, having a good time. I would also recommend, unfortunately, we live in such a weird time, really since the Me Too movement. If you are a man and you are wealthy, or you are a public person, or even just a man anymore, these are the dangers you take when you have physical relations outside of wedlock. When you have a life full of lust, one way or another, deadly sin, one way or another, it comes back to haunt you. Let's just say, for the record, hypothetically, Diddy's 100% innocent. Didn't do any of this. It was just crazy parties, like the kind that the New York, SAR that was just exposed by who. They got him on camera talking about having sex parties and all this other stuff, right? This guy that shut down New York City, right? Please do your research. The information's out, if you know what I'm talking about. He was cornered there by O'Keefe, if you know what I mean. He had the city shut down. Meanwhile, he was having sex parties. These are the people in charge of our lives. No morals, no fucking morality. I should have popped that article up, but actually, let's see if I can do it right now. Now, remember, you can watch this show or you can listen to it. If you watch it, you get to see the videos, the pictures, stuff like that, where I'm drawing the news sources from. Or you can listen on any podcast platform. Let's see if I can pull that up. Here he is. Yeah, it's all over the papers. Let's jump into that for a second. XNYC 2019, the thing that shut down the world, that illness. The guy who was in charge of shutting down New York got the boot from his job at a pharmaceutical firm on Monday, a week after he was caught bragging about hosting sex parties and attending underground rave at the height of the pandemic. Dr. Varmer was serving as a senior health advisor to the then Mayor Bill de Blasio during the 2019 shutdown when he and his wife put on the sex and drug-fueled debauchery and attended a packed Wall Street rave, according to the secretly recorded conversations the doctor had with the woman. I mean, look at him. He just looks like a disgusting lowlife. He really does. Pursuant to the terms of his employment agreement, Dr. Varmer's service on the company's board of directors also automatically ended effective immediately. Varmer boasted about harassing people into submission over the jab mandate and admitted to participating in illegal sex parties, all while the former health commissioner, Dr. David Chotsky, and then Mayor Bill de Blasio imposed draconian measures that shut down the entire city. The hypocrisy is outrageous. It reminds me of Gavin Newsom shutting down, and Nancy Pelosi, and shutting down California, okay? Destroying people's lives and businesses, saying it's too dangerous for you guys to be together. Meanwhile, they were in many events and places that you're not supposed to be during their lockdowns while they had no mask on. When are you going to see the hypocrisy? I don't care if you're a liberal. Like, this affected your life. It destroyed the city. It divided us because a lot of us knew this was all bullshit. And when we give you facts like this article, you deny them. You deny the hypocrisy. You deny the contradictions. You deny the fact that it really wasn't about our health and they weren't that scared of this thing if they could literally have sex parties. Forget about the risks sexually and getting herpes and all this other stuff. They weren't even concerned about that, let alone that they might catch the virus from one another. Like, wake up already. Wake up. The cat's long out of the bag. And a lot of you assholes are still out there covering your faces with masks, not even breathing fresh air. Like, Stockholm syndrome, man. You're like cheering on these people that have like played with you, played with your honor, your trust, your loyalty, trying to do the right thing. You were a victim. You've been victimized. Like, wake up. Wake up already. Getting back to the whole Diddy thing, he wasn't the only one. Usher deleted his account and then put it back on X and said, yeah, it was a mistake. I got hacked. Why are all these celebrities and musicians who have any ties, Megan Fox got pulled into that, why are they deleting their Twitter accounts just all at the same time? What are the coincidences? It's got to be because of their affiliation with Diddy, is what a lot of people are saying. What do you think? Drop me a comment below. Is this Diddy thing bigger than we think? Now, I would say, until we know, no. But what are the odds that this guy even makes it past another month or two incarcerated? It's very hard to go from that type of lifestyle if you have everything, $50 million condos, private jets, all the money in the world, and now you're in a jail cell with criminals. And speaking of jail cells, who's he sharing his jail cell with? Sean Combs and Sam Bankman-Fried are sleeping in the same Brooklyn jail cell. The pair happen to be placed in the same dorm-style cell with several other defendants. So that's interesting. Sean Combs has been placed in the same cell of a Brooklyn jail with convicted crypto fraudster Sam Bankman-Fried, the New York Times reports. The two are not cellmates in the classic sense of sharing the same small jail room. Rather, they're both sleeping in a large dormitory-style room at the Metropolitan Detention Center with several other defendants. The Times confirmed the arrangement through a source, but the Bureau for Prisons declined to speak on the matter. The agency says it does not provide information about conditions of confinement, including housing assignments or internal security practices for any other particular incarcerated individual. Combs has been in the MDC since his arrest last week. The hip-hop mogul, who's faced a wave of abuse and assault allegations over the past year, was indicted on federal racketeering, conspiracy, and trafficking charges. The indictment accuses Combs of using his wealth and power to run a criminal enterprise centered on his own gratification, physical gratification. Combs has pleaded not guilty to the 3 charges against him. Combs has so far failed in his efforts to secure release on bail. His attorneys first offered a massive package that would include a $50 million bond, and they told this guy no. And the feds have a 90% high conviction rate. I don't think Diddy's ever going to see freedom again, and I would really be amazed if he even survives the next couple of months, like the other guy that was locked up and somehow managed to unalive himself in a cell under maximum security. He was charged with similar things on a global level with very high-profile people and royal family members associated with him. You know who I'm talking about. I want to give some advice here to to men out there. I really don't recommend living a very promiscuous life. Besides the physical, dangers you take of getting an STI or some type of disease, what it does to you mentally and psychologically is it sets you up for failure in a really good relationship. The more bodies you have, that's for both men and women. And the risks you run now as a man, especially if you have power, especially if you have anything to lose, I really think it's unfortunate, and I don't recommend this lifestyle. I think you should find someone, have morals, have respect, be in a loyal relationship. I don't think it's worth the risk anymore. If you're a powerful man, if you're a Dan Bilzerian, if you're a, anyone wealthy with power, like, you really at this point need to be in places where you can literally make the person you're about to sleep with sign a contract, record them if you're in a state, make sure you check your local state laws, get them on audio, get them on video saying, I consent to sleeping with you. I consent to probably even going down to the specific acts you're going to do, because it is much harder to prove your innocence and repair your reputation, even if you did nothing wrong. That's why so many people settle, even if they're not guilty, than it is to deal with it after the fact. I would highly recommend, unfortunately, writing these things down, making them sign a contract, having audio. You need to protect yourselves, men. I'm not saying Diddy's innocent, but if he had something like this in place, then it would be a lot harder for them to pin this on him. It's a very wild ride out there, and you really never know who you're with or what their intentions are until it's too late. We live in a sick, godless world where no one has any loyalty, no one has any morals, no one has any standards, no one has any honor. People don't have a problem lying to destroy your life, which to me is the same as killing someone. If you destroy, and I'm not saying Diddy's innocent, but let's just say he was. Let's just say everyone was cooperating, having fun, going to these events, because all I'm hearing is, now if he forced people, that's different. But how do you prove they didn't? Anyone can turn around now. They have up to 20 years in some states. I understand if the victim needs a few years to get their confidence back, go to therapy, and then have the courage to fight back. But 20 years, really? 20 years? 20 years that you decide to pop up later? Never even went and filed a police report, something to prove. Like, you could file a police report, but not charges. I mean, there's a million different ways. I just find it to be very dangerous towards men, the way it's handled. Now, I've always stood up for victims, and I believe they have rights, and I wasn't mad that they extended the time that they can file a claim. But to my understanding, that was done because of all the scandals that happened in the church, because the rules were I think you had 10 years, which to me is more than enough time to get back together and then go after the person that did this to you. 20 years, how do you, and what is it, just their word against yours? There's no physical evidence because too much time's passed. Unless you have something in a text message, a video, how are you going to prove that person actually did that to you? So anyone can just say, I was taken advantage of. I don't understand how you're going to convict people and how people who actually didn't do anything are going to be protected with these long lengths of time. I just don't get it. But drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think. Back to Bankman-Fried. His ex-girlfriend today, this is reported by Yahoo Finance, Ellison to be sentenced over crypto fraud. Former cryptocurrency executive Caroline Ellison is set to be sentenced on Tuesday for her role in her imprisoned former boyfriend, Sam Bankman-Fried's theft of about $8 billion in customer funds from the now bankrupt FTX exchange he founded. Ellison has pleaded guilty to 7 felony counts of fraud and conspiracy and testified as a prosecution witness in the trial of Bankman-Fried, who was convicted of fraud and other charges last year and is serving a 25-year prison sentence stemming from FTX's November 2022 collapse. At her sentencing hearing scheduled for 3 p.m. before U.S. District Judge Lewis Kaplan in Manhattan, so that means any minute now, in about an hour and a half, they're going to sentence her, Ellison will learn how much leniency she will earn from her cooperation with prosecutors. Ellison, 29, will almost certainly get far less prison time than Bankman-Fried did. The crimes to which she pleaded guilty carry a maximum sentence of 110 years in prison. Her lawyers have argued that she should get no prison time due to her cooperation without recommending a specific prison term. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan, which brought the charges, also urged Kaplan to go easy on Ellison, citing her extraordinary cooperation and expression of remorse. As FTX collapsed, Bankman-Fried persisted in publicly denying knowledge and fault. Prosecutors who wrote in a September 17 court filing. Ellison, on the other hand, expressed relief that the fraud was exposed and responsibility for her wrongdoing. So let's see what happens. Today, DJT, Donald J. Trump, I believe that's his middle initial, is now they're questioning if what he did at a public event was illegal. Donald Trump slips mom $100 bill for groceries. Is that legal? Donald Trump is helping one Pennsylvania mother fight inflation, but his showy method, handed her cash for groceries, means he's potentially flirting with committing a crime. Here's how it went down. While working the campaign hustle, the Republican presidential nominee swung by Sprankle's neighborhood market Monday in Kittanning, Pennsylvania, and casually dropped a $100 bill to pay for the mom of three's groceries. As he slips her the cash, you can hear DJ T say, "Here, it's going to go down a little. It just went down $100," referring to her grocery tab. And let's see if we can play some audio from this video. And
take the rest of it. Here, it's going to go down a little bit. It just went down $100. We'll do that for you from the White House, all right?
Thank you.
All right, bye. Nice seeing you, everybody. Beautiful. They're your kids?
Yeah, they are. 3 boys.
Perfecto. Perfecto. 3 for 3. Bye, everybody.
That was reported by TMZ. The mom was clearly thrilled to have her groceries covered, but then the shocker, Trump improv, maybe a little more than he should have, telling the potential voter in the battleground state, "We'll do that for you from the White House," all right? Probably meaning we'll make the cost of food go down, inflation, consumer goods. Now interpret the sentence how you want and ponder this from the U.S. Criminal Code. Whoever makes or offers to make an expenditure to any person either to vote or withhold his vote or to vote for or against any candidate could be fined and imprisoned for up to 2 years. Here we go now. Another scandal for Donald Trump. That's what they're going to try to turn this into, guaranteed. Anyway, grocery underwriting aside, Trump kept the charm rolling, chatting with the mom about her 3 sons. So, do you think they're going to turn this into a bigger thing than it is? Probably. I think so. This is alarming news if you live in the New York area, of which I do. Reported by the New York Post. New York resident with state's first case of mosquito-borne EEE virus in nearly a decade has died. A New York State resident who was diagnosed with the state's first confirmed case of Eastern equine encephalitis in nearly 10 years has died, according to authorities who declared an imminent threat to public health. The Ulster County patient, who was not identified, was diagnosed on September 20th by the health department's Wadsworth Center. Governor Kathy Hochul said Monday the case was the first instance of EEE in New York since 2015 is being investigated by the county's health department. State Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald issued a declaration of an imminent threat to public health in response to the diagnosis. The declaration frees up state resources to support EEE prevention efforts by local health officials, including ongoing mosquito spraying through November 30th. Multiple state agencies, including the Department of Environmental Conservation and the Parks Department, sprang into action to expand access to bug repellent at public sites in response to Ulster County case. Following the first confirmed human case of EEE, my administration took statewide action to help protect communities. Visitors at state parks, visitor centers, trailheads, and other state properties will notice increased signage about the EEE risks. Mosquitoes, once a nuisance, are now a threat. I wonder if any of this has to do with all that geoengineering that Billy Boy did. You know what I'm talking about. In any event, this is very scary stuff. Right on time before November, and I couldn't pray for cold weather to come faster for the first time in my life just to take out mosquito season, because this is the last thing we need to be spreading around New York City and the rest of the country. Other things that are spreading. Thousands of turkeys killed in Merced County as officials battle avian flu outbreak. This is from the Fresno Bee. Bird flu has been circulating around the U.S., affecting both bird and more recently mammal populations, with some cases even being transmitted to humans. So far, all of the human infections have been transmitted via animals, namely dairy cows and poultry, but now experts say this is the first one with no known exposure to animals. More than 64,000 turkeys at Merced County poultry operation are being killed after agricultural officials recently discovered they were infected with the highly pathogenic avian influenza. The highly contagious and deadly virus has become the scourge of the poultry industry since an outbreak began in 2022. More than 92 million birds have been killed in the U.S. as a part of an eradication effort. In Merced County, federal officials confirmed the virus was located at a commercial poultry operation on September 18th. The name and the location of the ranch were not revealed by state or federal authorities. Once the virus was confirmed, officials launched a depopulation plan for the sick birds to contain the virus and prevent it from making other birds sick. This is wild. As of Monday, the USDA reports that 231 dairy herds have been affected in 14 states, including the nation's top milk producer in California. The number of California dairy herds infected with the avian flu has jumped in 3 weeks from 3 herds to 34. Infected dairy cows will lose their appetites, produce less milk, and be lethargic, but they will recover after several weeks. Well, at least that's good. Another mysterious Missouri bird flu case shows complications of outbreak response. First case of person to contract H5N1 after no known animal contact highlights federal-state agency relationships. The first case of a person to contract bird flu after no known contact with animals is raising questions about the possibility of human-to-human transmission and highlighting the complicated relationship between states and federal agencies in outbreak response. An extensive investigation into the case of the patient in Missouri who was hospitalized on the 22nd of August has revealed no links to animals. Officials at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention told reporters on Thursday. 2 contacts of the patient also fell ill around the same time, the agency revealed in a report the next day. A health worker developed mild symptoms but tested negative for the flu. There's a blood test to check for antibodies to H5N1, a highly pathogenic avian influenza that may be done as soon as 10 days after infection, but antibody testing has not started, CDC officials said. What do you think? Is another massive shutdown on our doors? I would say yes. This doesn't seem to be going away. I think the whole monkeypox thing has calmed down a little bit, which is some good news. Some more positive news. The Earth may have breached 7 of 9 planetary boundaries, health check shows. That's not good news, folks. Ocean acidification close to critical threshold, says scientists, posing a threat to marine ecosystems and global livability. Ocean acidification is approaching a critical threshold. This is reported by The Guardian, particularly in higher latitude regions, says the latest report on planetary boundaries. The growing acidification poses an increased threat to marine ecosystems. Thresholds beyond which they can no longer properly function have already been breached in 6. Climate change, introduction of novel entities, change in biosphere integrity, and modification of geochemical flows are judged to be in high-risk zones, while planetary boundaries are also transgressed. Inland system change and freshwater change, but to a lesser extent. All have worsened. So, things are not getting better, supposedly, on the environmental front. This is breaking. Israel launches new wave of widespread strikes. Says it doesn't want Lebanon ground invasion after hundreds die in wave of airstrikes. Israel not eager to start any ground invasion, says UN envoy. Israel's ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon, said his country is open to ideas for de-escalating the conflict in Lebanon. It's not looking good out there. Let's go a little bit more into that topic right now. Reuters reports Israel kills Hezbollah commander in airstrike on Beirut. An Israeli airstrike on Beirut killed a senior Hezbollah commander on Tuesday as a cross-border rocket attacks by both sides increased fears of a full-fledged war in the Middle East. Israel's military said the airstrike on the Lebanese capital killed Ibrahim Kubaisi, who is said to be the commander of Hezbollah's missiles and rockets force. 2 security sources in Lebanon described him as a leading figure in the Iran-backed rocket group division. U.S. Embassy in Lebanon urges Americans there to book any ticket available on the few remaining departing flights. Israel, Hezbollah are increasingly trading rocket fire. So it's time to get the fuck out of there, which is probably why it will be a full-blown war, which I predicted back on October 7th, if you've been following me for that long. Pentagon sending additional troops to Middle East as tensions escalate. This is reported by The Hill. The U.S. is sending a small number of ground troops to the Middle East as a larger war between Israel and Hezbollah threatens to break out. We are sending a small number of additional U.S. military personnel to augment our forces that are already in the region. The U.S. already has an array of forces positioned in the Middle East, including the USS Abraham Lincoln Aircraft Carrier Strike Group and the ballistic missile submarine USS Georgia, along with an additional squadron of F-22 fighters.
So tension in the Middle East now looming over Biden's last big UN meeting. The U.S. will send additional troops to the...
Yeah, we know. Not looking good out there, folks. The U.S. aims to bring attempted assassination charges against a Trump suspect. The U.S. Department of Justice plans to charge the man accused of hiding with a gun at President Donald Trump's Florida golf course with attempting to assassinate a major political candidate, carrying a life sentence if convicted. Ryan Ralph, 58, was ordered by U.S. Magistrate Judge Ryan Maccabi to remain in jail without bond pending trial on 2 gun-related charges brought against him after his September 15th arrest. So, there's a lot going on. Now, for those of you that think you're safe when you use apps like Telegram and what's the other one? I can't think off the top of my head. Everyone thought they could have these like secure communication lines and they're safer and Signal and they're not going to know what we talk about and we can communicate. Well, you guys are fucked. You're screwed. It's just a simple rule. If it's online, if it's on a text, if it's on a phone call, if it's in an email, someone will always be able to see it and someone will always be able to hand it off to the authorities. Very simple. Nothing is safe. Not even talking in person unless you're in Goodfellas with a toothpick in your mouth, covering your hand, going, hey, the feds are watching. We got to be careful. How silly were you all to think that you could speak on these apps and there would be no repercussions or that you were protected and encrypted? If you thought you were, Telegram CEO says user data will be provided to authorities if requested. Telegram will now hand over the data of users who violate their rules when requested by authorities. CEO Pavel Durov announced Monday. The changes come nearly a month after Durov was detained and indicted by French authorities after allegedly refusing to work with authorities investigating criminal acts on the messaging app. Durov, in a statement posted on his Telegram account Monday, said that the platform updated its service and privacy policy to ensure they are consistent across the world. We made it clear that the IP addresses and phone numbers of those who have violated our rules can be disclosed to relevant authorities in response to valid legal requests. The measure should discourage criminals. Telegram search is meant for finding friends and discovering news, not for promoting illegal goods. We won't let bad actors jeopardize the integrity of our platform for almost 1 billion users. Well, I can promise you the majority of those users were using it to have alternate ways of communicating, and I bet you that those 1 billion users ain't going to be there much longer. People that don't have to be in space any longer. BBC reports space crew returns to Earth after longest stay on the ISS, the International Space Station.
And see you on the ground.
Here's video footage of their capsule coming back to Earth through the atmosphere.
There is the jettisoning of the heat shield right on time.
This is footage from NASA, courtesy of NASA, on BBC's website.
374 days in space on this flight, waving to the crowd. 1,111 days in space on his 5 space flights.
It's a lot of time in space, man, over a year. I bet you they're happy to be back on the Earth. People who don't want to be on Earth. Several people are detained in Switzerland in connection with a suspected death in a unalive yourself capsule. I find this to just be very strange stuff. And if we look at this real quickly, police in northern Switzerland said Tuesday that several people have been detained and a criminal case opened in connection with suspected death of a person in the new unalive capsule. The word that you use for unalive to when you take your own life. Prosecutors in Schaffhausen, Canton, were informed by a law firm that an assisted unaliving involving the Sarko had taken place Monday near a forest cabin in Meerhausen, Regional police said in a statement, they said several people were taken into custody. Now, for those of you that don't know what the Sarco capsule is, it's designed to allow a person sitting in a reclining seat, it looks like a spaceship basically, sit inside the seat, push a button, and then it gets filled with nitrogen, and then they slowly, suffocate without too much pain. Unlike some other countries, including the Netherlands, Switzerland does not allow euthanasia, which involves healthcare practitioners taking the lives of patients with lethal injection. Switzerland is among the only countries in the world where foreigners are allowed to travel to their country legally and end their lives, has a number of organizations that are dedicated to helping people kill themselves. I am fully, fledgedly, as someone that believes in God, completely against it. I understand the logic that you're suffering. Your family's suffering, taking care of you. You have some terminal disease that's going to turn you into a vegetable. I believe only God gives you life. Yes, he gives you the right to take your life. You have free will, but only God should take your life. And when you take your life, you don't make it to the next side. You don't get to go to paradise. And the reason for that is I believe that through God's wisdom, you are sometimes purged of your sins. Only God can judge us. So I get a terminal disease. I get, God forbid, a slow and suffering. From the Muslim perspective, and I believe it's the same in Christianity, by painting through this, like we have the prophet Job. If I'm not mistaken, it was Job who was bedridden for a long time. Was it Job or Lot? It was Job, if I'm not mistaken. I like to pull that up just to make sure I'm correct, because, there's a lot to remember here, my friends. Let's see if that's him. Job. Okay, Job is presented as a good, prosperous man who is suddenly beset with the horrendous disasters that take away all he holds dear, a scenario intended to test Job's faith in God. Struggling mightily to understand the situation, Job reflects on his despair but consistently remains devout. Okay, so from my understanding, he even gets really sick, And what does that mean? It means that this life is one big test. We are put in certain situations in this simulation that God has created. This world is a simulation. We can't control when we were born to who we were born. And I would even go as far as saying that the game board of life is rigged. People call it timing or luck. No, I believe that's divine wisdom, that knowledge only God possesses. The game board of life is rigged. So many times people could be the most healthy and all of a sudden they have cancer. Like, you could try to, I know people that are the most unhealthy people in the world and they never die of getting sick. They're obese, they drink, they smoke. I know people that smoked to 100 years old, chain smoking. Some people never smoke and they get lung cancer. So I believe the game board of this life is designed to test us, what we've been through, the hardships, the heartache, that none of this is lost and none of this is in vain. And God didn't create this world for his own amusement, but there's a purpose that only God possesses the knowledge. Give the analogy of an ant with a human, one on a different level with intellectuality. Being intellectual. I believe that when these things befall us, it might be a way of God purging us of our sins. So we pay the price in this life and not the next. Under no circumstance should a human being ever take their own life. And if you ever feel like that, please get help. Please call the hotline. Please make sure you talk to a professional. Please talk to someone of a spiritual, direction. I've helped many people who have felt this way. And there's no reason you should ever take your life. And I promise you, if you do, what you will find on the other side is not what you want to find. I promise you. It will not end well. You're going to be escaping one pain for something that is much worse and will never end. Never take your own life. Ever. Under any circumstances. That is why I look at that practice in Switzerland as extremely evil. And I do not support it at all. At all. Another thing that is becoming harder and harder to support, the Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky discusses victory plan he will present to Biden. He was in Pennsylvania yesterday signing missiles that are going to be used to probably pull America and the whole world into war with Russia. That conflict is going nowhere, and neither is the one in the Middle East. And we are in extremely volatile times. And I ask all of you to stay vigilant, take care of yourselves, take care of your families. Never surrender. I'll keep doing my homework here, keeping you up to date with everything that's going on around the world. You hit that sub button. This is your boy, Bek Lover, and you are watching the Interesting Times podcast on the Bek Lover Podcast. Till the next episode.